this week's episode of Chasing the Whimsy. I'm your host, Ben, and we have special guest co-host.
Yeah, show host. Megan.
Hello, Megan. It is episode 98. We are so close to 100.
We're on the cusp.
Liam wasn't feeling well, and he wasn't able to call in. So thank you for coming on and hanging out with me.
This is my house, listeners. He came to me.
So the road to 100, we have been doing W's.
I remember, yeah.
And then I'm like 5 W's, because then that way I can map out what the next 5 episodes were. We realize that when isn't a really good W, so now we're stuck. So I have no idea what we're doing for 99.
You know what? When I'll think about it. I'll put a pin in that one.
Right. But I wanted Y to be the last W, because I think it's the most insightful of why we're doing it. The idea is if people are new.
So, like, what tells you the players,
Yes.
and who tells you the players? Why is why you should listen to us.
Right. So the road to 100, it's, instead of listening to 100 episodes, boom, you get all of Whimsy in the last 5 episodes. Like, you get the who's and the where's we've been. 100, we're gonna have a great time for 100, and then the whys is kind of just a nice little bow before we lead into episode 100. So I did a live stream yesterday in which I may or may not have had a small nervous breakdown. So before I jump into my mess, I'll ask you why. Why do you like podcasting? Like, I've never, like, I know you do it.
Right.
Because you're like, it is what it is, and you like to help out and like to talk and stuff. You actually like to podcast?
I think I do, and I think that it's a lot less intimidating than I thought it was going to be. Like,
right. Well, Ben can do it. Anybody can do it.
Well, I mean, it's like, here's a microphone, talk.
Right.
But, I don't know, that's your whole life, right? You walk outside and you talk and you say things, and now it's just people can tune in.
I think it's always interesting because it's like, why do people want... One of the whys is like, why does anybody want to listen to me? And like, I try to avoid that why, because then it's just like wildly discouraging at that point.
I mean, I don't know. I think that the fact that somebody would choose to listen to you when you're not standing right in front of them, like forcing your presence on them, is interesting. Even if like one person listens to you, you're like, hey, I said something, and somebody continues to want to hear what I have to say about it.
I corner you in a line at the grocery store. You're like, I don't want to talk to this guy, but you come to my podcast and you want to hear me.
Exactly. And like your coworkers every day, like you have to talk to them, right? It'd be creepy and weird if you just sat by yourself alone, but you're like an odd couple with every like Esther or Madge who is like older than you, and then you got like a bunch of kids who are younger than you. It's hardly ever that you find best friends at work, but you're all kind of like best work friends. Right.
And it's definitely, the workplace has always changed a bunch, and we go, I'm going to eventually talk about like early days at work, and it's like completely different than it is today.
Oh yeah, and well, and maybe it's because you're different. You're a different role now than you were before when you were a young person.
Yeah, but there was
when we were young people. Let's throw that one out there, but...
Well, you got the social media thing, and everybody's so judgy, and everybody's like so sensitive and PC. So sometimes, like, I couldn't get away with something.
It doesn't happen a lot at my workplace, and you know why? But like, we don't run into PC a lot.
So why do you podcast with us?
I think at first it was just because you needed somebody to like throw your ideas off of, and I was like, I'm great at just sitting here and talking. And I do, if anyone knows me personally, talk a lot, so it's pretty easy for me. But I don't know, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting trying to create something and trying to say something other than let's bitch about our work friends and stuff like that. And it really challenges you, I think, more than people know on the non-talking part of the podcast, because often, even if I'm not on the episode, you're like, dude, what should I talk about? What's interesting right now? What's going on? What should we explore? What would you be interested in interacting with? And you have to think, like, what do I like to interact with? What kind of content do I like to watch?
It's weird, because if we had like a true crime podcast.
Yeah.
Easy.
This is what happened.
We just copycat everybody else.
Yeah.
Everybody just keeps
This
doing the
dude
same.
stabbed his wife.
Right.
Here's how we know it was him.
I don't mind true crime. I think it's a little it's a little easier, I think, topic wise. Whimsy's always kind of just been like the topic of the week, and it is 100% difficult sometimes to be like, I don't know what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, well, it's a different topic. Like, it's a different podcast every week. You don't know if you're talking to people at, like, I was just saying the name of it, Our Town Comic-Con, or something of the like, or if you're going to be talking to J-Sarge.
Right.
Now we've got people on, like, the Neighborhood app who are trying to talk to us, or we're just talking about pop culture, or remembering 80s jingles, or horror movies.
Or old man jumps on and tries not to sound so sad. Sad dad.
It's a constant struggle.
I absolutely love, because when we first started, we don't talk about Tom Steve Dave as much as we used to, but I definitely model a lot of the vision of what they've been doing it for 15 years, and for the most part they're fairly successful.
Oh, of course. And it's hard to go 15 years without getting tired and everybody just kind of falling off.
Right.
So keeping it fresh is like a skill.
So like today we've seen little bits and pieces of it. You see a lot more of it on the lives. To keep the longevity of 15 years, I think you have to like introduce like more and more of yourself into it, versus just the topic of the week. Sometimes, like, I could be having a bad day and I'm just going to rant about it. Sometimes when it just naturally comes, I'm okay with it. But, like, today, when I'm overthinking it, I'm like, do I need to be saying this much? Or, like, I feel, it feels kind of weird to be like, should I be saying this much about myself and everything? And, like, and then, like, I half worry that, like, people are going to judge me about it. And I'm like, never mind. It doesn't matter because I'm using it as a therapy. That's one of my whys. Is like it's very therapeutic for me.
I truly think that there's like no rules to it though.
Right.
So if you don't care that somebody knows something about you,
Right.
then who cares if you do it on your podcast? Right. It's your podcast.
Right. Have you ever thought about doing your own podcast?
I don't think I have enough interesting things to say to be on my own podcast, to be honest, but
I was thinking once a month so here's what I think we could do. Okay. We get a green screen. We can so I bought you a very D-rated movie, like a D-rated movie for the holidays.
Yes.
So we get a bunch of those, right? A bunch of hokey, like weird slashers.
Oh yeah, like the one with the hotel
yes.
that we were watching last Halloween.
So I think if we green screened it, we can play the movie behind us, and then people can watch the movie as we commentate on it, like Mystery Science Theater.
I was gonna say like Riff Tracks, but Riff Tracks is done by Mystery Science Theater 3000. So,
but I'm like, that would be interesting, and it would be a video podcast so people can see the absurdness of these horrible movies.
And we love them. Like we have that whole collection of like horrible slasher films and just awful exploitation film.
And I think you and I have a very similar dark humor.
Of course, yeah.
In which we will make fun of and have a great time just making fun of the absurdity, the exploitation of it all. But I was thinking about maybe we could totally do, because if we have to, I think we need the green screen so people could see the movie.
Yeah, it would be a little bit hard to do it with like just audio.
Right, to be like, hey everybody,
here's screaming, and also here's some more screaming.
Right. And then nobody's gonna have these movies. Like you can't find these movies anywhere.
Don't play along. Because that's what Riff Tracks did, was they had you like basically play along with your own version of the movie.
Right,
like
they're like
Twilight or whatever it is.
Like press play now. But I thought a weekly, I think is it's a very daunting task. Behind the scenes, I do put kind of a lot of work into each episode. I'm planning weeks in advance sometimes. He's a big fan of the fucking shoot from the hip. Liam and I talked about it, is me and him work really well together. So when he does shoot from the hip, I can play off of him and he can play back onto me. So like it still kind of works as long as we have a general idea of what we want to talk about. But yeah, I was like, what can we get Megan on more? And I'm like, horrible movie night.
Horrible movie night. And this doesn't just span like horrible slasher films and exploitation films. recent films too. I've just been told I have a terrible taste in films so many times.
Hey, next week we're watching Craven.
No, okay, but that's actually a good movie. I'm gonna fight to the death on that one.
I think it would be fun. And we kind of test it out a little bit, do some commentary movie reviews or just TV reviews even. Every once in a while I think I'm like, we need to get Megan on more. What can we like, kind of like when you're on, but kind of give you one of like something ish your own.
My own project.
Yeah. I think that would be fun. We'll see about it. Some otherwise.
It'll just be, what is it? 9 hours of me pointing out everything in Lord of the Rings that is different from the books. 5 seconds in.
9 hours. Book 1.
Okay, the first movie's over.
Oh.
That's literally what it's like to watch it with me, though.
But there's a corner of the internet that would actually watch that. You guys are like fanatics. Tolkien kids.
Oh, I mean, like, I think that yes and no.
Who's more hardcore? Tolkien or Harry Potter people?
I think that Tolkien people are more hardcore. It's been around longer, but people like Harry Potter, and then everybody's jumping off Harry Potter right now. They're jumping off the author, not the book.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any more whys for you.
Whys. For me personally, I mean, like, I don't know. Why podcast in general? No, we were talking about this before we started rolling, but yeah, no. So I was watching this short from Subway Takes. It's like a TikTok channel, YouTube Shorts channel, whatever you want. But one of the takes was there should be less podcasts. And I thought,
it's a bold statement.
Fucking why? Like, seriously, why? Like, that's like saying I wish there were less books because there are books that you don't like reading. Just don't read them.
Right.
Don't listen to randos podcasts if you don't like it.
Right.
And I just feel like that'd be like saying nobody can paint unless you're Van Gogh.
Right. Unless you have, like, training.
You enjoy painting, you can't do it because some people might not like looking at your paintings or your sculpture or whatever it is. Just don't look at it.
Right.
And then, like, you go down the road of, so this guy thinks some people shouldn't podcast. Well, why do you get to decide who podcasts and who doesn't? What if the next door neighbor to you thinks, no, actually, Chasing the Whimsy's great.
Right.
So,
and like, why does it bother him that much? Just don't listen to it.
Like, oh yeah, everybody has to have an opinion about everything. Like, everybody does have an opinion about everything. That's what makes us human, right?
And it's so easy to podcast.
It's so easy, and it's so easy to ignore. It's like watching shorts. Mm-hmm. If you don't like a certain person, just keep scrolling.
Right.
Like, why get mad about it?
I like it because it's also like, podcasting has been, Kevin Smith started in 07, I think. So 07, 08. So we're coming up almost on 20 years of podcasts. It's still the Wild West. There are no rules.
Well, there are no rules, and there, like, shouldn't be less podcasts, because I think it makes a weak system. Like, the people who are on top don't have to innovate or do anything new, because there's not new ideas coming in. And not every new idea is going to be great, but some of them will be. And then there's also podcasts that start out kind of lukewarm, and then they turn out great.
Mr. Beast, for YouTube, he did nothing for like 3 years.
Well, and then they'll keep plugging away at the same idea that is now wildly popular. And you'll be like, why wasn't this popular when they first came out? And you're like, it takes time for things to catch on. Right. It really does.
Like, we're not blowing up by any like at all. But it's one of those things where we have the longevity. Like, we're trying, we're doing our thing, we're hitting cons and everything else. And it's one of those things where I keep telling, like, Liam and the listeners is like, something is going to happen with this podcast. I don't know what it will be, but there's definitely something greater to come. Like, we just have to just keep. I mean, the sound quality sounds better. Like, I think overall we all sound better than those first couple of episodes, even though they were amazing.
Well, that's the part where you're stretching your legs because nobody is good at anything when they start. Like, I don't think that anybody who's great at anything, I don't think LeBron just start dunking immediately. Right.
You gotta practice. You gotta put in your 10,000 hours.
Yeah, and they talk so much about every stupid success story starts with, and he didn't even win his high school talent show. And you're like, yeah, probably he shouldn't have. Like,
Right.
you know, all these famous people, you expect them to be like stars from the beginning, but they had to learn their craft
Right.
too. And you don't get that from just going, we'll probably never make it, so we won't even start recording to begin with.
Or bail out after 10 episodes. It's amazing how people just give up on it because we started it because we wanted to have fun, tell stories. And that hasn't changed at all. So I'm like, might as well keep doing it, even if we're only doing it for the same 15 people. But I'm always like, we just need that one person to stumble on us to be like, I like it. Like, what happens? Like, we go to the Fan Fusion. Kevin Smith, Jay Means are going to be there. I asked them, I'm like, what do we do when we're doing a panel? And they come in.
Don't put that evil on me. I'm gonna be at the panel.
But what if they come in? Because Liam's like, I'm not going to say anything. I said, oh, 100%, I'm bringing them up if I can. But it's one of those things where Muse's kids are like 4 and 10. And Jay Muse could be like, I like that he's up there with his family and his kid. And he's like, maybe I'll like partner up and like, I've seen stupider things happen.
I mean, like, anybody's in the audience and
Yeah.
they go, I really like the idea of this podcast. They listen to us and they say, hey, best friend, listen to this podcast.
Right.
And then they say, hey, best friend, listen to this podcast. And you're growing from, like, actual exposure
Right.
in the real world out of something that has nothing to do with our podcast.
Right.
I mean, I don't really actually know what our panel is going to be, but, like...
I did send you an email.
No, I remember the ideas. I just meant that we hadn't cemented it yet.
Not yet. After episode 100, you and I will meet up again. Did you hear that Liam might have to do the panels with us?
Okay, but like, does he have to do both panels with us, or does he have to do one or the other?
There's a chance like he's not going to do the Saturday. He would probably do the Sunday.
The Sunday of
Fan Fusion.
Fan Fusion.
He likes the idea of TuSCon. TuSCon. He liked it because it's smaller, a little bit more intimate, and he wants to do like a straight live show.
Well, I mean, like, that would be like the dream at TuSCon, because like the energy there was palpable.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people were looking at us. They wanted to be recorded. They wanted to participate. We did get some people to participate randomly.
Like, we just had a table out in the courtyard.
Yeah, and people were literally
lining up, like, almost.
Lining up and just kind of looking around. What we need next time, though, is to, like, cement that we want you to come sit down, is maybe, like, just, like, a little cardboard sign that says, hey, we have seats, come down and say something. Because I feel like most people were afraid that they were disturbing us or intrusive or something like that, but...
What's interesting with the Christmas episode, we technically could, like, I have 6 microphones. We just have to have a better setup, like get a nice table, bring people in, turn on the mic, and then someone just jumps in mid-conversation and we all just hang out. Because that's all they do there anyways. Like, you see people hanging out, and then all these other people just kind of hang out, and then the group grows, and then they dissipate.
Yeah, that's why we'll just say, empty chair, you're welcome.
Right? It's going to be a blast. But... yeah, I'm like, we could do...
yeah, TuSCon was the real deal.
Yeah.
I feel like for us.
AJ from Fan Fusion, super nice guy. We're going to have him on. I'll have you on with us. It was so funny because I was talking to AJ, and a lot of interviews I've had this year. AJ, Cindy with the magazine, she wants me on her show. So, like, a lot of different interviews, and people are just like, I love the idea of the show. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then, like, 2 conversations with AJ, he's like, I wrote a short story like 15 years ago and actually won at Fan Fusion. I'm like, you should break it out. Send it to me.
Right. Do it.
He's like, I haven't thought about that thing in years. I said, let's look at it.
We're a home of lost literature.
So, yeah, it's one of the whys too, is like this idea of bringing people's lost like passions back, because I wrote for a while, loved it, and then I completely dropped it because I hated the whole idea of anybody reading it. Now somebody's editing it. I might publish it before TuSCon, and it's like super scary, but I'm like, I'm gonna do it. We're gonna try it. I'm gonna put it under somebody else's name.
Coward
and Megan Coward. I love it. Are you I know you're not surprised. Do you think we, like, when we first started, do you think we were going to be as consistent as we are?
I know that when you dig your heels into something, that
Like a
it
straight
tends
addict.
to just go so hard on it for, like, forever.
Like, I talked to one lady and she's like, you should trim down your projects and just focus on one. I said, no. So it's just all part of, like, the brand is old man just figuring it out. 2 live streams, and I think the live streams for the most part are pretty, like, 2. Mind Pockets is a brilliant idea. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
No, I love Mind Pockets because it does bring to, like, light when you have a thought and then you forget about it.
Yeah.
And then, like, 2 weeks later, you're like, wait a second.
Right?
Wasn't I just thinking about this?
And then the Monday show is, Kevin Smith literally does the exact same show. Him and Mark Bernardin, what did we do this week? What's in the news? And then, like, a Q&A. And I do the same basic thing. Instead of a Q&A, because I can't get 4 people to email me a question every week, I just do a rabbit hole, which I think is interesting. Kind of helps me work on my, like, short form, like, content ideas and stuff. So I absolutely love it. Like, I'm having a blast doing it. And yeah, like a straight junkie. I'm like, because it's like, Liam doesn't want to play. I'm like, I'll do it by myself.
I got it.
I like it. Why do you think your sister hasn't come on? I know, because she hasn't been formally invited, but we're waiting for a good episode and Liam to kind of, like, be in the, like, we're going to get her on. Sophie's on?
Sophie's on, but she also doesn't have any fear in her life.
No.
Sophie is not afraid of anything.
She's the coolest.
Yeah, Kelly's a little shy. I mean, she doesn't like public speaking, and this is technically public speaking.
Right. Could we hide her name and just be like, we have anonymous here?
Just pretend it's me, and then
There you go.
yeah, hey, we got Megan on again. Nobody's ever gonna notice because twin voice. Yeah, we can't be on together.
You two should do a podcast together.
No, we can't. Because here's the thing: I've 3-way called with her before, and people have trouble telling who's talking.
Right.
Because we sound exactly the same.
People be like, listen to this podcast. This lady, like a multi-personality man, she has like 2 different thoughts going at all times.
She talks to herself for 30 minutes.
Because you guys are always talking. I love that about you two.
I was saying we never shut the fuck up, you mean?
And it's about the cool, like, in any given night, you could hit 5 or 6 different topics and they're like all over the place.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've obviously known each other for 33 years,
Yeah.
and I don't think we've ever gotten bored of talking to each other. But, like, I think that's maybe a twin thing.
Right. Because my grandmother talks to her sister like every other day. Like, religiously almost.
Yeah, I mean, we went through probably a little while where we didn't talk to each other every single day.
Was it your fault? No, I'm joking.
No, probably most definitely. I was working like 18 hours a day most of the time,
Right.
so I was... But even now, we worried when we moved back in with
Right.
each other, like, are we going to get sick of each other and fight all the time?
Have you gotten sick with each other yet?
Never. It just
I
it
don't
doesn't
see any of
happen. I was going to say it doesn't happen. Because we grew up so close to each other, we learned to resolve conflicts, like, experientially, because honestly, this was the biggest problem growing up, and Kelly will agree with me. I'm going to look at her in her eyes, is we would be fighting, and then, like, 5 seconds after we broke off, like, you know, angrily,
Right.
I'd be like, shoot, I want to tell Kelly something. So we would just, like, be sitting there, be like, about to explode. I
You
just
just-
saw this on TV, or I just thought about this, or I just finished
You had a
this
mind
book.
pocket and you're like,
Yeah.
she needs to hear this now.
Like, be sitting there just trying to be mad, because you want to be mad if you're
Yeah.
mad, but I'm just like, I just want to talk to my sister, actually.
This TikTok, this video supersedes the madness.
Dude, even now, like, in the texting age, like,
Yeah.
if we have some, like, tiff or something, I'll immediately watch, like, some stupid YouTube short, and then I'll hit, like, the send button, and I'll be like, oh, and then, like, the rest of the conversation will come up, and I'll go, oh, shoot, I forgot we were mad at each other. Like, better not send this. I'm like, just send it.
Would you do a mind pockets?
Mind pockets? I don't think that I have that many interesting thoughts.
Does it matter? Give me like 5 throughout the week. Just text them to me, and then I'll bring you on and be like, I'm gonna read this to you from Tuesday.
They're gonna be crazy detailed, or else I'm gonna forget what the hell I meant by it. Do you ever do that in your mind pockets? Like, you wrote something down and you're like, I got nothing, bro.
I record them throughout the week, and then sometimes I have to write them down so I can record them later. And then sometimes, like, I had one the other day where I wrote something, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck this means. I'm like, I have no idea what this means. And I decided to sit there for a second. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, there it is.
You're like, if Roseanne Barr had a sister, and you're like, why did I write that?
Because the one on Saturday was the volume wasn't working on when I was trying to edit on the MacBook. And I just put lame audio slider. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. Because I was using a different thing to do all the editing, so I completely spaced it. I failed on the other thing for 3 days, and I was like, oh, there we go. I remember what it was. One of the Whimsy kids, she used to do Mind Pockets. She would go on Instagram and record a document, and she would just give a random thought and just post it. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of people would treat Twitter like Mind Pocket.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking that day.
You don't do social media, do you?
You know what, this just came up. Somebody asked me if I was on social media, and I wanted to say yes. And I thought about it, I was like, no. Like, not on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or...
You're like, I got my YouTube shorts, I'm good.
Yeah, I got my YouTube or TikTok or whatever.
Or your 6,000 open tabs of whatever you've been researching over the year.
Let's not bring us to that. I just got rid of, like, I would say most of them. And I was like, Kelly, I got down to just the essential tabs. The tabs that I need to keep open for now. It's still 65 tabs.
Essential 65.
I deleted so many. And I was still 65.
If you ever go Whimsy Gauntlet with me, I'm going to make you delete 3 of them.
I need all of them, by then I'll have, like, some buffer tabs. Like the weather app opening 10 times.
Right. I want to know what the weather looks like in Chicago. I'm like, for what? And you're like, I don't know, just because.
Yeah.
So you're doing 2 cons with us this year.
Yes.
Do you travel out of state for if we got another bigger one?
I mean, it depends on the con, I guess. And then if I have the money to travel out of state.
Man, one day someone's going to pay us for it? Like, how cool would that be?
That would be so neat. But also, like, if you drop, like, Lord of the Rings in front of any kind of con,
right?
I'd go bankrupt, dude. I'd be there with bells on.
There's probably one every other weekend in some city somewhere.
Like a small one, but yeah.
Just take a year and be like, take a sabbatical and be like, we're just going to travel, hit all of the, all the different Lord of the Rings cons.
Every con in the country.
That'd be amazing. I would dig it.
That'd be pretty cool.
I think the 2 that we do this year is really going to set us up for, because do you like public speaking? Have you, like, the idea that we're going to go to Fan Fusion and you're going to stand up in front of 200 people with me, does that freak you out?
I've already done that, so I'm not too freaked out about it. Okay. Are we unlocking the Megan lore or something?
No, because, like, the idea of the panel works, but then when you get up there, it's like,
Well, I mean, like, no, I used to actually just do public speaking for this leadership thing that was in school, and we would talk in front of, like, 1,000 people, and it was just part of it. So I think once you're up in front of, like, a big crowd, I think the bigger the crowd, the better. Because then it just becomes crowd.
Yeah.
Crowd is the entity. It's not 1,000 people. It is crowd.
I get up there, I freeze.
If it's 4... See, here's the thing. If it's, like, 4 people and I'm making some stupid thing at work where I have to say something in front of 4 people, I start...
If it's too small and I know everybody, I get very casual.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't. There's a certain professionalism I need.
We don't need professionalism.
Depends on who's in there. If it's 4 people I know and my boss, I'm like, oh, go away. Or HR. HR is always there.
Gotta love HR.
I love my HR lady. Both of them. They know me.
No, my HR knows. But I don't love them.
Do they know you for good or for bad?
Kind of for both, I would say. I'm a known troublemaker.
Yeah,
a little bit outspoken, but not that I've ever done anything. And I've never been, like, sanctioned by them, written up by them, but...
You've never had a welfare check on you?
You know that a Harry Potter meme where it's, like, basically McGonagall being like, why is it always you 3? Right. The HR is like, why is Megan always involved?
Right.
Something's happening.
For a while, it was always like that where they're like, something happened. Like sometimes I was, and sometimes I wasn't. But there was always like Ben's always like.
I'm always around.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like I have work in both departments of our like business where I work at, so I'm always
Shipping and
somewhere.
receiving.
Yeah.
I like it. I emailed my HR lady randomly last year and a half ago. Just out of nowhere, just like, hey, FYI, I'm going to do something crazy. I don't know what it is yet. Just so you know, it's going to happen. And then,
I feel like they would call the police.
no, it was good crazy. There was more to the email. It says I was going to try and change the
Ricin attack or something. I said I was doing something crazy.
I'm going to change the landscape and the way that we do like engagement and stuff at work. So it was it, and I did. And then some stuff fell apart. And now we're starting it up again. So it's interesting. What's weird is the idea was I want to do short video interviews with people who've worked there for less than a year, 5 years, 10 years, 50, like 40 years. And then
years.
Yeah, there was a lady that's
Jeez.
number one in seniority. I would love nothing more than to talk to her for like 4 hours. Like, what was it like 40 years ago? Like in the office, in the industry, like I would love it. And it's like this, like, because they have these milestone meetings every quarter, every 5-year increments. And then they're like, hey, first quarter, 478 years worth of experience. And then I was looking at it and I'm like, it is a shame that I know nothing about all these people. So there's all this experience that you guys are like toting, but I'm like,
58 years of experience.
And I'm like, I don't know any of these people, and I don't. So that's kind of like the idea came from, and everybody liked it. But what was funny about it was right after we started the podcast, and then something happened at work, and we had to put a hold on it for 6 months. But I'm like significantly better now, so I'm like, I'm way better and more prepared to move forward with it this year. So I'm like, oh,
So it actually worked out in the end.
It's the universe, man. I don't know what's happening. I follow.
Sometimes bad things are just good things that have to wait a bit.
Something. It is interesting because me and my mom, every once in a while we'll make jokes about it, but I think we're both a little like semi-serious of like something out there is messing with us. So
I think it's called random chance.
No, can't be. I don't believe it. So, do you have any other whys?
For me personally, podcasting, I mean, not really. It's fun. It's a good way to spend 45 minutes.
We're already 37. We got another 30 going.
Oh my god.
Liam will come in a future episode. Maybe I'll have him tag in on 100. Find out what some of his whys. A lot of his whys are similar to my early whys. When we first started, he was asking a lot because he was like 12 going into 13. He's just like, what were you like as a kid in high school? And then we just, because we have the hour drive to and from. So it was like this idea of like, what do we talk about? And then he just starts rambling. And then I'm like, these are pretty interesting stories. But some stuff I can't tell you because I don't think it's age appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that kids are always going to ask that they don't really get the answers to until later.
But then it was like you and your sister, your mom, and your grandma. So then it was like, why not? And then I recorded, I have to find that recording. On his birthday, on his 13th birthday, we did a recording. I have no idea where it's at. And then right after that was like, hey, do you want a podcast? And he's like, yes. And that's part of the origin story. It's like, let's just get equipment now. And I'm like, calm down. So I think early in its simplicity, like the vision statement is just hang out with people you like and tell some fun stories, and then learn what you can about your family if you can.
Yeah, to get the story of everything. It's interesting thinking of how interconnected everything is, but everybody has like a different version of the story.
Well, because like right, and so so like my whole why's evolved like 6 different times. So we have all these stories, and it's like, let's talk to mom, let's talk to grandma, and like let's share and have some good times. Everybody on my dad's side of the family, they're all storytellers. They're all characters, and they all tell stories. So a lot of their history is tied up in all these like this oral history.
Yeah.
And I only went there for 8 weeks out of the year. So there's so much stuff I didn't know. And I'm like, that's part two of the why, is find out more about the
So
things I don't know.
you're basically doing to your dad's family what Liam was doing to you.
Yeah.
You're saying, tell me more. Tell me more. I want to know why. I want to know what happened between everybody. Because when you were a kid, you didn't know certain things because you weren't old enough, and now you are old enough.
Right. Because, like, my mom was really good at it, was if there was anything going on with money or a job or the house, she never let anybody know. It was status quo. We were allowed to be kids. Oh, and then only in hindsight, you look back and you're like, was there a problem? And then she's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we were basically down to our last dollar. You didn't know that?
Yeah, it's like, and it's weird. And it's like, I did not know that.
And you're like, oh, that's why our neighbors kept dropping by with food. That's crazy.
Or, oh, that's what happened to the car. Like, we had like a Bronco and it got lost in the in a river somewhere. Like, it's like, I remember that. And it's like, what happened to it? Oh yeah, it got flooded out. So what's interesting is all these stories. One of the problems I ran into is what stories are appropriate for a podcast. So I've reeled that in, right?
Yeah, and one, I think that a lot of times, this is something that does happen to me a lot too, where you're podcasting and you'll say something because you just get talking
Right.
and you forget that you're talking on a podcast
Right.
or that anybody else will listen to it. The person who's on the podcast can choose what stories they want to say. It's not like you're sitting there going, you have to tell them
Right.
about, when we were poor.
Right. So I reeled that back. And then one of the evolutions is the idea that Sophie 10 years from now won't remember this version of me. Like, she'll remember some of the fun things that we used to do, but like Liam doesn't remember a lot of like 1 through 5 and whatever was happening then. So I like the idea of being able to record these things so that way when they're 40 and they go through their midlife crisis, they can be like, this is what my dad was like 40 years ago.
Yeah, well, he was like at my age.
Right. So now I'm doing this thing where I don't know what yet. I just know there's something in me that just says I need to know some of these, like, as much as I can. So I'm going to start recording like these archive recordings. So I'll meet with a couple of people who are relevant to the certain times and get into a little bit more of like the unplugged type stuff. Record it, boom, it's gone. I don't tell anybody. It's just there. I will it to the kids.
Right, this is for us.
Right.
Sort of thing. Like, this is not a podcast. This is
Dad's oral history. Like, this is what Dad was like. All the bads. You're not going to hear it until I'm dead. You're like, my dad was a huge mess from like 18 to like 52.
But I mean, do you want to die at 52?
No.
Got distracted.
It gets better at 53.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you also probably plan to tell them when they turn 18, or just like talk to them about it and say, hey, this is what happened to me.
Yeah, but then at the same time, like, one of it we said earlier was my version of the story might be different than what actually happened. So I'll bring in a couple of people to help provide like a second confirmation of what actually happened, or if I just forget it. So I wanted this oral history of just if something we blow up, something happens, and someone wants to do a documentary on me, I'll have all these extra recordings.
Yeah, stowed away.
Right? I love the idea of that. Because I've been watching SNL 50. So they have a documentary, episode 1. Going back like 30 years, they have like Will Ferrell's original audition tape. And I'm like, how cool is that somebody has a 30-year-old tape of someone's first audition?
Like, you can actually see the moment in history before somebody became...
Right? Or when Jim Carrey did his, and they're like, he didn't make it. And like the idea that half these people didn't make it, and you're like, why not? They're like, and again, I don't know what it is, but I just know that like there's something in me that says it's important, not today, somewhere later. So I'm like, let's just do it. But yeah, because I would love to have like my dad's story. Like,
yeah, I think about that a lot. I don't know if you like watch those ads between TikToks
Yeah.
or whatever, and it's like, this is your story, and like they have you like write down in the blanks or whatever.
Right. Yes.
I was born here. This was my first love. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I honestly don't know any of that about my dad. I literally don't know anything about him before I existed.
Right. And even after you existed, there's so much you don't know. So like I get that. So by no means do I have a non-embarrassing life. Like I got some straight, flat out embarrassing, and then some straight like what's like worse than embarrassed, like
Humiliating.
that like hard regret stuff. So some of those I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna tell the kids that. Like, but at some point I think it'd be interesting for like Lynn to be like, oh, okay, whatever. So I'm gonna record all these archives. So because it is weird, especially now. Because so I identified Gen X. You got millennials and the Zs, right? All they want to do is just record and just tell everybody about everything that they're doing, right? But then you go back to like your mom, my mom, your dad, my dad. They're not real big on being like, let me just tell you all the dark.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a big secret.
Right?
They'd rather die than have it come out or whatever,
Right.
even when it's something stupid.
Like, so obviously, like more of those stories are going to be harder to get. And it's like, I'm not going to push for them, but I want them, and then I'll eventually choose where they go. Maybe they don't go anywhere, but at least I got them.
I think sometimes it's easier to get them if you're already hearing about something else.
Yeah.
Like when you get people talking,
Yeah.
that's when everything just starts sliding out.
Because I know that there's some embarrassing stuff and things that you're not proud of. So, and I have 100, I got grips of those. Like,
I think everybody does. You don't want to tell everybody everything.
not as far as the podcast, but, you know, when age appropriate or when something happens, be able to relate back to the kids and be like, hey, I've been there. Here you go. Here's a fucking 12-year-old recording of like, I've done the exact same thing. So it's gonna be all right. So we're gonna do that. And then one of the other whys I decided recently, and this is where like fucking mind pockets like derailed, is so I have this nostalgia tour that I'm doing, right? So it was like, oh, tell stories and like let's find out more about people. And then I'm like, I can't ask people to do and tell me their past if I'm not willing to talk about my past. So
Definitely true that you have to give some to get
Right.
some.
So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pump the brakes on trying to get everybody else's backstory. Let's just have some fun, have a good time, make new memories today. I'm going to go on this nostalgia tour so that way I can feel what I'm asking them to do. So on this nostalgia tour, I was like, we got bowling alley day Ben, like high school into like the bowling alley, and then new house, and then a new job, and then shipping and receiving, and then like current today. So there's like 6 or 7 different Bens over the last like 20, 25 years. So I'm like, all right, I half mapped it out. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to start tracking some of these things down, find some people, chit chat. And then I'll sit down and archive all of those and be like, all right, here's what I remember of these times. And then one of the things I was thinking about is all those other versions of Ben. What is weird is wildly outgoing and always felt he was destined for more and bigger. Like he was always like, I could do anything. Then he quits bowling. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And then it was just like, so it's like super outgoing. And then all of a sudden, I have nobody left. Like I've burned every relationship I've ever been in. So I'm like, well, that's fantastic. I'm like, so now I got to reflect back on those things and be like, the idea that now that I'm going to look back on how I sabotaged all of those absolutely sucks. But I think the idea of this new like nostalgia thing is you gotta take a second, look back, because like I can't fix anything moving forward until I admit all the shit that I did in the back and then find a way to fix it. So like that's kind of like fucking weird.
So you're looking to your past to see how to improve yourself in the future.
Right, because clearly I have a fucking pattern of like make bad decisions and like just ruin everything. And then that's why all the different versions of Ben changes, because it's like, I'm gonna bowl. And then it's like, I'm just gonna burn that bridge and like start over. And then like, I'm gonna go to school. And I did that for 2 years. I'm like, I don't wanna go back to school. Then I'm like,
But have you looked into like why you make those decisions, or
a little bit. A lot of it was the like
you can look into like, oh, I started smoking or whatever, and you think, oh well, it's because I'm always looking for a quick fix to something. Smoking's a quick fix and it makes me feel good and I can do it immediately. And you go, okay, well, I need to take apart the part of me that needs everything to be fixed right away, and then stop smoking and look for things that will satisfy me that are not bad for me, but also that part of me that just needs to be like, relief button.
Right.
Relief button.
Well, it's like, looking back, a lot of it is, let's not talk about anything, deflect, and just wait for it to fall apart. So I'm like,
but why not talk about anything?
I have no idea.
Why deflect?
I don't know. So that's what the podcast is. It's like, all right, it's giving me a chance to like talk more. Because for whatever reason, similar to like, again, like a lot of those stories from people who don't want to go and talk about some of the darker or the things that they might be embarrassed about, is like, I don't want to talk about them. So I just deflect and just let it just fall apart. So now I'm like, as I'm doing this nostalgia tour, and now I'm podcasting and I'm trying to, and it's weird because I'm telling more, because it's now no longer just fun stories. Now there's fucking live streams in which Ben's like falling apart. So like, it's weird that like, it's a different part that I didn't really expect to come out. Like this weird, vulnerable, like I'm a mess type thing. And like, it's like joke, but then there's like a real hard underlying, like, no, he's fucking for real right now.
Yeah,
like,
behind it all, there's something really serious.
Right? So like, there's this like, so now my why is, let's look back at like, where I'm at today was like 90% my fault. Like, so it's like, all right, so now we got to identify those things. Some people I can apologize to and like try and fix, and some people I'll never even talk to again. Like.
Well, yeah, there's people like back in your 20s or whatever.
Right.
You're not going to be like, hey, by the way, sorry for being a jerk.
And to be fair, like some of them probably don't even give a shit anymore. That was 20 years ago. Like 20-year ago girlfriend, like she cares. She's like, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, she moved on.
I'm happily married 15 years. I'm like, oh, okay. But then I get like, but I was the one. I'm like, but I'm not. So now I have the grips of that. And then there's this idea of, I keep saying, is like, there's something bigger coming somewhere. As of right this second, I have nothing to show. 41 years, like any major accomplishments. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not happy and that like the kids aren't awesome, but like I've done nothing. Like the old version of Ben, who's like, I can do anything.
When you were the old version of Ben and you were saying, I could do anything, what did you mean by that? What were you thinking you were going to do? Like, give me like an example of like what young Ben thought he was going to do. Like, become president?
Like, take over the world or something. I have no idea. Definitely not 20 years ago. I wasn't going to be like, 41-year-old Ben is going to be alone for the rest of his life.
But I mean, like, if building relationships is the goal, then you could still do anything.
Yeah, I don't
know. Either way, repair yourself,
right.
And then either repair relationships that you want to repair or make new ones.
So, like, I'm in this, like, reset right now where, because it would be, let's burn this Ben and then instantly jump into another bad idea.
Well, you can't burn your past, so...
No, but I can burn, like what was good, let's just burn it. Now, like, none of it's good. Like, that's so weird. So...
I think that trying to divorce yourself from your old selves is kind of problematic because you're trying to cut yourself away from your progress.
Right. Well, the problem... I don't think there was any progress.
That's just not me. That was old Ben.
That was old Ben.
So, no, you're the same Ben, and you have to move forward from here. Just like every Ben that you've been stood there and was a different Ben before and moved into a different Ben, but didn't divorce themselves from old Ben.
Right, but I don't want this Ben to be like any of those. Like, there's an evolution instead of just a change. Like, I just want like something I want to do better. Like, I'd like to be able to do this like 5 years from now and be like, I've accomplished something.
Yes, but I think that trying to get a quick fix and saying it's just the new me and I'm going to do the right thing.
Nope.
I've definitely run into that in my own journey of like trying to improve myself, where I would just say, well, you know what? From now on, I'm going to do things differently.
No bacon on Tuesdays, and you're like, bacon sandwiches every Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. Or just like, I'm not going to act this way anymore. Right. Or I'm not going to be insecure anymore. Right. And then you go, you know what? It's as easy as just thinking it and doing something different, right? No, it's all about habits. It's all about figuring yourself out and why you do things. It's all about...
So, that's what I'm trying to figure out, is like how to like not repeat it in the next phase. And I think that's what the podcast is doing, is one of the whys now, is to continue to explore the Ben. So instead of like distracting and like, so as I look inward, if I don't like it, instead of being like, oh, this is uncomfortable, let me just distract somewhere else, I'm going to sit and stew in it for a minute and be like, I don't like any of this. And then why don't I like it? And then how to like change or fix it or get out of it. So I think that's currently where I am now in the why, is who is, I'm trying to redefine who Ben is, I think. And some of it is looking backwards because I like those stories.
And there's no reason to say you just, because you didn't end up where you want to be, that your whole life was some kind of crazy, worthless. You like those stories and those are all part of you, and you wouldn't be where you are now if you hadn't gone through that.
Right. And I don't know, it's just weird because I like there was good in all those bands. Like, I'm not a fucking horrible monster all the time. But at 41, it's just like, I haven't really gained any traction in 10 years. Like, I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, is keep podcasting, keep working through it. And then, like, the idea, it's fucking weird, is, like, Tell 'em Steve Dave has been going on for 15 years. And in those 15 years, we've heard about Brian Quinn's depression, Brian Johnson's drug problem, his girlfriend issues. Like, we hear all these things, and I like that podcast because of how open, like, they're fun, but then there's those moments of real.
Yeah, and people are not afraid to share their inner selves.
Yeah. So
because of judgment or...
Right. So now I'm at that place where I'm like, all right, baby step in it. We're going to try and let people in a little bit. One, if anybody can relate, to be like, I don't like who I am today. Ben's going on this journey. I'll do something similar, or at least acknowledge or recognize instead of distracting off.
And you're also trying things out so they don't have to go through things that don't work. Right. Like, you're like, oh yeah, I actually went to crystal healing and I don't feel any different.
Don't do a podcast where you just rant about everything all day, because that's not going to help. But surround yourself with fun, supportive people that enjoy and love you. So I'm continuing that. Like, I haven't branched off and like hermited myself to like crawl in a hole and just like fucking mope about anything. I'm still having a good time and trying to grow with it. It is interesting. It's fun. But I also have this huge tendency to overthink.
Well, yeah.
like a lot of this stuff, like, none of it's rational. Like, most of this stuff is like barely rational. And the problem is before podcasting, it was like irrational thought, overthink, distract, and just burn something down. And now it's kind of like, all right, let's talk it out. Have someone who's like a little bit more like down to earth and fucking like reasonable, and like, Ben, you're not. And then, well, because like, you're not going to judge me, so you're like, all right, Ben, yeah, you're a fucking mess, but it is, so it is interesting, because I didn't know, because year one, like episode 1, I wasn't gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna tell you guys all my dirty little secrets.
It'd be like a weird way to start a podcast. Yeah. Hey, by the way, I'm depressed.
Right.
And I want to change myself.
Well, because I always worry if I go too real, people are gonna be like, oh man, Ben's gonna kill himself. Like, let's put him on Suicide Watch. And it's like, I'm not there. Like, we're not even like remotely close to there. I'm just a little bit fucking sad. And like, I think everybody does.
That introspective.
It is interesting. Definitely have talked more since doing the podcast about whatever has been happening. Never like hard specifics, because, I maintain a certain level of privacy with everything else. Allude to, Ben's not happy. He's working through some stuff. And then whenever it kind of works itself out, I try to keep people filled in and everything else.
Yeah, and that could be the hardest first step, is to admit that something's wrong.
Right. Well, and then the second part of that is, oh, something's wrong, and now everybody and the grandmother wants to be like, well, let me tell you how to fix it. I'm like, no, like everybody calm down. Like, let's just listen, let Ben work through his process, and just be supportive. Like, he's not looking for answers yet. When I'm looking for answers, I'll let you guys know.
Right.
But yeah, because like, you know, because sometimes when you have those like those work friends, all I want to do is vent for a minute, and then they're like, well, you should just do this and call HR and get a restraining order. I'm like, whoa, calm down. Like, I'm not asking you to fix anything. And like, can I not like just vent for 2 minutes? Like,
yeah, I just want a space to talk and just kind of like get the energy out there.
Right, because similarly with the car issue, like I'm tired of holding all that fucking negativity in. Just let me get it out for a minute.
And it does make you feel better after you complain and you just go,
right.
I pushed it out. Like, I pushed the whole energy of like, they're scamming me and something bad is happening and all that stuff that gets like all twisted up inside of you, just kind of.
Right, because it's like one of those, because I don't know, like I'm not one to like go deep into like what I'm thinking and feeling. It's like put on the happy face for everybody.
But it's that part of the problem and how you ended up alone.
Right.
I mean,
I'm gonna say it was right.
Would you like to be with somebody who goes around and says, everything's fine, honey. Everything's fine. And then after a year or whatever, they're like, divorce.
Right.
I was annoyed the whole time.
Yeah. So, it is interesting. I don't think Liam has anything close. Like, I don't know if Liam will listen to this, but it's one of those things where he's coming of an age and where he's going to start going through all kinds of weird emotions and be like, hey, man, like, you can't bottle it all up, man, because, like, you do it for so long, man. Like,
it's true, and then we're still at the point where we're teaching men that they can't show their emotions, that it's inappropriate for them, that it's feminine for them to say anything about how they're feeling.
Right. Like, all he's talking about is feeling he's gay. And it's like...
And then you guys die of a heart attack at 50 and go...
Right?
Oh, I wonder why he died so young.
Right? And, like, yeah. But significant, like, there has been improvement. 2-3 years? I think there's been. I've been definitely, like, more available. Because, like, prior to, like, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I can't remember the last time I had a vacation before we went to Seattle. It was, like, it was, like, 12 years. Like, I had this weird, like, thing of, like, I kept hiding behind I have to work 2 jobs, deal with it, and it's, like, one of those things where it's, like, look, I can still go on vacation and still have fun and still work 2 jobs, like...
Well, I mean, you get a week off from both jobs, so...
But it was one of the, like, why didn't I take more vacations?
I think that you have become comfortable with working 2 jobs and having your whole life be dictated by this really restrictive schedule, so you don't have enough free time to actually let yourself breathe.
Like, I do love a good routine, but I realized that it was too routine and that there needed to be some flexibility for some bend time. And it's like, hey, let's all go to Seattle.
How about for some sleep?
Pasha.
People who are sleep deprived also die a lot earlier.
Whoa. And then, like, let's not even get into the science behind it. With the amount of sleep that I get, and, like, the lack of sleep that I get, or, like, the 3.5 hours I get per day, like, that stuff messes with your head, man. So,
well,
like,
it messes with your head, it messes with your body. I mean, I used to work overnights at a bakery, and... dude, I was just not doing good. And then I got a different job just out of happenstance. And so I had to flip back to regular, and I was like, wow. I didn't realize how miserable I was like...
Dude, it is... Kelly, did you struggle those first 6 weeks working overnights? Oh, she slept, that's why. Well, because when I get new people to come work overnights with me, I'm like, hey, and they're always like funny. They're like, oh yeah, I go out and party and hang out. Like, I stay up until 2 o'clock all the time. I'm like, that's 2 o'clock, man. There's a 4 o'clock wall that will punch you in the face.
If anyone's ever, like, stayed up doing a project or something,
right.
When you hit that 3 a.m. and you realize you still have to work for, like, another 4 hours on that project, you're just...
like, because I went deep on, like, the brain science behind working overnights. Like your body naturally wants to sleep from like 9 to 7.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're like
Right?
evolutionarily want to sleep at night and be awake during the day.
So the idea that like, and it's funny because I tell new people, I'm like, just FYI, like you occasionally go out and you can stay up, but 5 days in a row, like I said, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. I said, for the first 2 weeks, you think you got it because it's a new job and you're trying to prove something. Weeks 3 and 4, you're going to get a little tired, a little sluggish.
Yeah, halfway through the shift.
5, 6, mood swings. You hate everybody. I said, call your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, that at week 5 and 6, you're going to be irritable. Just hang with it. Then 7 and 8, you hate yourself and you want to die. And I said, if you can get past the first 8 weeks, because that's about roughly how long it takes for your brain to start getting used to an overnight shift, then things start to even out a little bit, but then you start running into the 3 a.m. wall. But like, I've had like 4 different people be like, yep, absolutely, Ben, because I just yelled at my sister. And I'm like,
yep.
I'm
grouchy for no reason. I feel like I'm going crazy, and you're like, no, your body's just telling you you're an idiot.
Like your brain absolutely hates everything that you're doing right now, which is so weird because it's like, and I think that's part of like the excuse of the routine is like I have to maintain this routine because if I mess any part of this routine up, it just ruins my entire week.
Yeah,
and that's just an excuse.
I get it. I'm like very routine driven because I'm an extremely distractible person. So if anything happens with my routine, I start being like, rethinking life. Honestly,
right? Because I'll take one extra day off and then just mess with my sleep schedule. For years, if I woke up late, hated everything. I was like, I hated myself. I hated everything about life for like a day and a half because I woke up a half an hour late. And only within like the last 2 years, I'm like, yep, it happens.
Yeah, sometimes it does happen.
And it's like, and it sucks, but it's like, it's semi-understandable, and people do it all the time. It's not like the most, now every once in a while I have twice now, Liam and I have like slept so hard that there's a phone tree, I think, where they're like, have you heard or seen any of these people? And then they get to my mom and my mom has to ring the doorbell. Now those ones.
She's the final boss of the phone tree.
But then it's so embarrassing. It's like, because then it looks like I'm like, and nobody's thinking anything about it. But for whatever reason, I'm like, oh man, everybody thinks I'm a fucking junkie, or I'm just like unfit. And I'm like, nobody's thinking that.
Well, no, they just think that you're tired. I mean, right? I know Kelly's knocked on your door before, trying to wake you up.
So, but yes, I've definitely found a happier shit happens. So I don't take it so hard anymore. But I used to get so angry, like just rage.
Definitely gone through that where I had like a really bad temper before, and now I just realize it's like you never get like mad or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can feel where the tension is in your body. Some people it's like, in your chest. Some people it's like in your fist. It's whatever it is. If you just relax that and just sit there and just breathe and go, I'm not mad for 2 seconds, you could be like, change your entire day.
Right. Well, a couple of years ago, I get socked, and it was like the shittiest thing. And he didn't mean anything by it, but he's just like, you sleep a lot. And I'm like, gosh. I'm like, I know I do, man. I'm like, I'm sorry. So then I'm like, oh, all right. He's noticing. I'm like, all right. So, but like I said, I think there's definitely growth over the last like 2.5 years. We're definitely more available and engaging and still doing stuff. Podcasting helps, I think, a little bit, because I get this high like right before record time. I'm like, I love it. What's funny is like I edited last week's episode, and I was like, oh, I'm like, it was so funny because Lane was like trying to figure out how he's like, I want to go off to college, and then what are you going to do with Whimsy? He's like, I want to take the red hat. And I'm like, he's like, buy me out. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy you out. He's like, I'll buy you out. I'm like, you're not going to buy me out. He's like, what percentage am I? I'm like, 50%.
Well, I mean, I guess technically you guys could both podcast if he had his own microphone.
So, love the episode. And I was like, I'm riding this high, and it's like fucking midnight. And it's Sunday into Monday, which is the worst day of the week because I've been up now since live stream yesterday. So I'm like, oh yeah, great episode. So I'm like, Liam wants me to do. I'm gonna make a comic of Liam's backrooms, episode 78. Everybody should listen to it. It's fantastic. I listened to it, fucking loved it. So I was like, I'm gonna live stream it and I'm gonna commentate on it. And then like I hit record and I'm like, woo! And then like half hour in, I'm like, okay, all right. I'm like, if I was talking with somebody or doing like a regular live stream and had some structure, I could have made it. But yeah, I got to the point where I'm like, all right, so Ben can no longer podcast at 1:00.
Yeah, I mean, like, the accountability of having somebody else there really helps you push through.
It's fun. Like, I like it because we got some really cool memories. We had the Christmas episode, which was fantastic. The whole idea that we got 14 people all together to play a game and fucking podcast is like...
Yeah, it was totally a blast to have on Christmas because I thought, like, oh my god, this is going to be crazy.
And it worked out and it looked good and
it sounded great.
Like, oh, I just like the idea of like it. It's weird. Like, I should start asking the rest of the. Oh, I guess I kind of do sometimes. Is like, what do you guys think of the podcast? And like everything that I like, it's crazy. Like, it's fun. Like, I keep going back to like Liam when he's like 18, graduating. Like, we have all these episodes. I have some recordings. Because normally when we record the podcast, like we are now, I have the camera on him. So like this idea of like, I could put this like super reel together of like episode 100, funniest episode. You guys are going to love it. There's literally 2 years to the day almost of Liam and I talking in the car. He's 12 and a half years old and he's all about Pokemon Go. There's a bit in there where he's like, I'd record every day. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'll put it on my nightstand. I'll just record every night before I go to bed. And like, just the idea that the ups and downs of what he's doing. Like, here you go. Here you're 18 now. Let's listen to what you've been up to. And you're like all over the place.
Well, it's like finding your old journal when you're like 18
Yeah.
and it's like your 5-year-old journal and you're like, I'm learning how to write. And then it's your 10-year-old and it's like, man, I can't wait until I'm president one day. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh, and I keep watching all these documentaries. Tom Green had one on Amazon, and it goes over. He was a rapper and then a skateboarder, and then he started making these weird, funny videos and went to cable access. And he has all this old footage, and then there's this one scene where, no joke, 10 boxes filled with VHS tapes of just everything that he's done. And I'm like, how cool is that?
Yeah, it's actually a lot. Or not so much, because
Right?
it's VHS tapes. They take up a lot of room.
Right? And like this is so fun. Even 10 years from now, I'll go back and be like, hey mom, here's your first episode. Grandma, here's your first episode. JJ, he's 9, 10. Like, what is he like? He was all about like books and school. He's so funny because he's like, oh, I hate school. I'm like, it wasn't that long ago, dude. You were all about school. He's like, really? I'm like, absolutely. I said, it's recorded.
Really, we're so excited to talk about school and everything.
So I'm getting away from not caring about the people who don't understand. I don't fully understand it. I just know that it's important. Like, I wish I had more conversations, stories, videos, pictures of me growing up with my mom and my dad.
Oh yeah, same.
So it might not be important today, but later someone's going to wish they had episode 0, have some of the videos that we've taken. Again, no idea what, but I would rather have them than not have them.
No, I definitely agree. Like, especially since, obviously you and then we grew up at a time where it was like harder to take pictures, harder to take video of people, harder to take recordings of people. So I've got 10,000 pictures of Sophie.
Yeah.
And she's fucking 4.
Right.
I would be surprised if my mom had like 10 pictures from 0 to 4 of me. Or 0 to 10 of me. But you would want that.
Yeah.
Like, if you could have gotten it, you would have wanted it.
And everything's digital now. It's so much easier to just, like, my mom got me the 23andMe. Like my mom, she's the concept of the vision. Like I think probably the same way as where I'm at. She's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but she's like, send in your DNA and go find the rest of the family. Like go build your family tree and go get your old history. And she's like, he likes it, and who knows what we find, because she's always interested about, because she watches all those like the TLC, like all those shows of people finding lost relatives, and it's like she likes that idea, right? So I'm like, let's do it. Like, who knows? Like, maybe we would take a trip to the Philippines in 3 years. We're like, let's just go to the Philippines for 2 weeks and find out where the idea that this is where my dad was born, and here's where my grandma and grandmother, my grandma and grandpa like met and got married and everything else. And,
Right, you could feel like what it's like to stand there and be in a place that you've never been before, but that was every day for your family.
Right. Well, and before podcasting, you're like, that would be a fun idea. But now that we're actually podcasting, I do the 23andMe, like I'm putting things in motion where it's like, it's not that far fetched to be like, 3 years from now, it's like, we're going to record the 2-week adventure, and we're going to meet Steve, who's like my second cousin and like knew like my grandmother's like brother. And it's like, oh my God, hey. And it's like, I think it would be fun. It would be amazing. And we get to go to the Philippines.
And it kind of reminds me of a little bit of what I was thinking of before about the whys in podcasting. And I think I can add that to mine, where it's podcasting and like it opens up different doors that you wouldn't have gone through if you hadn't gone there and like talked on the podcast about it. Or it's like a vehicle to kind of like a social like lube. Right? And it's going to push you towards pushing yourself and exploring things that you wouldn't explore before. Like you 5 years from now can go, yeah, I actually presented at Fan Fusion.
Yeah.
Once, and really? Why? And then you say it's because of a podcast.
Right. And it's
like, I made a presentation in front of like this many people. Why? Because it's a podcast. Right. Now, if you go and you do something else later where it's more in line with just making presentations, or you like say you became like a speaker, you know, a motivational speaker, you got there because you were involved in something. And I feel like when you make yourself move and go and do things because it's not interesting otherwise to hear about it, that you are opening up doors for yourself. And podcasting is great for that because it's all about connections and reaching out to somebody else.
Right.
Or doing something that's notable enough to get on a podcast.
Right. And it's very relatable. There's a lot of people who are like, I have family that grew up in Spain or Ireland. Like, I'd love to go back to the motherland. And it's like, why don't you? And they're like, oh. And it's like, you totally should. Years ago, when I bought the house in 2004, I adopted 2 18-year-olds and a 19-year-old. They hung out with me for like 2 years. And we had this thing, because we were all just a bunch of punks, was if you think it, you speak it, you have to do it. So I like the idea of the podcast, because we have all these ideas. And the second we say it, I'm like, I got to do it now.
Well, it's out there now. Like, and then people go, hey, what about Fan Fusion? You said you were going to be presenting at TucsCon? You're like...
It's fun. You get the people are like, oh, that's interesting. And then a little bit of accountability to be like, you said you were going to do it. How come you haven't done it yet? I'm like, well, I was scared. I didn't want to, but get it out.
But now I just kind of already told everybody I was going to do it. Right. So there we go.
So it's fun. I absolutely love 100 episodes. That's amazing. A lot of podcasts don't make it to like 20, 25.
I was going to say, most podcasts probably die out around like 6 episodes. Or if they just don't die out at one.
Because I reached out, the Neighbor app, a bunch of people are like, yeah, I did a couple episodes and just stopped doing it. I'm like, why'd you stop doing it? I'm like, out of the 100 episodes, they're not all great. There's a couple of duds in there.
There always will be.
But
you're not going to tell me it's not like dud episodes of like House or something.
So
if you do 100 of something, one of them's got to be lukewarm.
I just like the idea that we've done 100 of these things. And I've done like 100 live streams. That absolutely blows my mind. There's like 400 hours of me. Like, out there. And that's only like a year and a half in. Sophie's gonna have so much to look at.
See, she has a lot of stuff for when she's studying, working out, just be listening to all this stuff.
Her friends are gonna be like, "Is that your dad?" And she's like, "I don't know who that guy is."
She's like, hold on. No, he just said something stupid. No, that's not my dad.
Isn't that the same logo as your blanket? She's like, "No," throws the blanket away.
That's definitely your brother, though, isn't it? Never heard of him.
He doesn't get, no, my brother doesn't.
Isn't that your aunt?
I like the idea too that like when Sophie's like 9 or 10, she's like, "I want a podcast." I'm like, let's do it. Because JJ was all about it for a minute, and then he kind of just bailed out. But
well, he's 10.
oh, absolutely, and he's dominating Taekwondo. He's almost brown belt, medals and awards. He's going to considering doing nationals. I think if not this year, next year. I just like the idea. And then one of the other whys, I think the last main why for JJ, Liam, Sophie, just if you like it and you're passionate about it, then do it. Like, don't worry about what everybody says. There's always gonna be haters.
Oh yeah, there's always gonna be people who don't like your line drawings or whatever it is.
Because we got the Whimsy kids and like 3 of the 5 of them like to draw, and I'm like, well, send me something. And they're like, no. I'm like, why not? Let's get it out there. Like, I'll pay you to fucking draw me something. So it's the idea of hopefully I can be like, just because it's scary or different, but you're interested in it, let's talk about it. Let's like try to work through it a little bit.
And Liam's really good at that. He always goes after everything that he's interested in.
It is interesting. And again, it doesn't have to be podcasting. He wants to wrestle. He's 112% invested into the thing. Fantastic. Do it. Like, if you were scared because whatever, get over it. Same thing with, like, JJ. He's just like, he's going to get to an age where he's going to go, like, full contact sparring and, like hard competing. And he's like, well, I don't know. I don't want to get punched in the face. I'm like, no, like, I'll punch you in the face. Let's fix it.
Just try getting punched in the face once. Maybe you like it. We don't know.
The first one's always the scariest.
Yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen yet.
But anybody listening, it's you one day. Like, if you like to write, and you have any desire for anybody else to read it, then like get it out there. If you want to, whatever the kids or anybody wants to do, is like, it doesn't have to be a podcast. If you like to draw, then draw. And then if it's, I like to draw, but I don't know how to make money on it, then let's figure it out. Like, well, I'll get you a Fiverr account set up.
Yeah, everything's doable. There's so many possibilities out there now to share what you love and to do what you love. And I can't imagine in the future that's going to be any less. Right.
It's significantly easier now. Like, it's just get it out there. And with 100 episodes, we haven't missed one yet. It's dedication, it's passion, it's consistency. It's like that dedication. Like, as long as you do those things, people will jump in and hang out for the ride. You never know.
And if they don't, at least you tried.
And like, listen to the episodes. Your dad failed a bunch of things. Try a different thing. Like, do it up. You took 2 years of sign language and doesn't know a lick of it. It's like, yeah, just get out there and try different things. Like, I've always been one to just try. So like, I definitely like that. I'm game for anything. So we're going to continue to do that, and hopefully, who did I say? Where did I say it? Somewhere. I don't remember. But like, the idea, like, my greatness might not be this podcast going viral or anything like that. But if we can inspire, if Sophie's going to be the next biggest musician, artist of some kind, and this podcast help her to be like, oh, let's try it out. Or any kid listening is like, if this podcast helps anybody do something great, then like, that's fantastic. That's all I want. That's why why I'm big on that whole community thing, is like, there's not always enough support for like the weird and the whimsy. Do it, man. 41 years old.
Oh yeah, it's especially if you do feel like whatever you do is outside of the norm or whatever.
Right. Like, your friends don't get it or understand it, or your family might not understand it.
But we're getting there, I think, as a society. Because, like, I remember so much, like, my parents and other people's parents, anytime they saw something they didn't understand, goth kid or something, they'd be like,
Right.
"Jeez, Louise,
Right.
you can't associate with
Right.
that person. Why would they even do that?" Now it's like, do what you want, man. You want to be a furry?
Right.
Go for it.
Right. Well, it's funny because my mom, in the beginning, she's like, I don't understand what a podcast is. She's like, what is it again?
It's like the radio, but on the internet.
Right? And it took her a minute. But from day one, she's like, it sounds awesome. And she's like, I don't know exactly. So same thing. Like, if anybody comes up and is like, I want to do this, I have no idea what that is. But just having those one or two people to say that you can do or try anything, like that makes, like, my mom was probably one of the ones that made the biggest difference. Was like, she jumped on board pretty early. So she's like, so I'm like, all right, well, she thinks it's a decent idea. I might as well just keep going. You know, some people, again, they don't understand, like, why are you doing a podcast? Like, because I want to. Like, it's helping me out. Like, there's a therapeutic side to it. It's hanging out with, like, friends and family, and, like, I'm having fun.
Right. If you enjoy it, who cares?
Like, me podcasting 3 hours a week is no different than me going bowling for, like, 2 leagues. Like, everybody has their thing, and my thing just happens to be, like, let's sit at home and record and talk about something. It's fun. It's going to be a good time. We got 2 years coming up in July. I have no idea what we're going to do for that. But it's been a journey. Like, it's been fun.
It's definitely been a crazy ride.
And it's only going to get crazier. We got 2 cons, and then you never know what happens with those 2 cons. 2 cons this year, next year, 4 cons.
Keep going, and then we'll have 1,024 cons.
I have no idea. Me and Chen runs the podcast studio, so we're also working on Whimsy Studios. We're going to start help produce some other stuff. But that guy's hitting 30 cons a year.
30 cons a year is crazy.
He was on a TV show for 7 years. He doesn't play in reruns. He can barely find the thing anymore. But somehow he found a career in a life that he can be like, I'm going to help people make podcasts, and I'm going to hit cons, doing and talking about the things that he loves. Like, that's the, oh, come on, man, Chen. Like, that's the best. Like, I'm not saying that's the road I want to go on, man, but
it's not a bad road.
A lot of people will be like, that's kind of dumb. How is that dumb? You get to travel.
Oh, I don't think anyone should think that's dumb, because you get to travel, you get to just hang out, you get to talk about the things that you love.
And obviously you do the cons that are relevant to the fandom that you're in. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think we're going to hit 30 cons anytime soon, but you never know. How many cons could we do in a year?
Given how much vacation time we have, probably quite a few.
How many, like, we could probably hit, like, 4 in-state, and then we just hit, like, 3 more in the surrounding states. We don't have to go across the country for it. Like, let's hit New Mexico for some random con just because. We were going to do Toy Con last year.
I bet you that New Mexico has the craziest cons in the country.
You think so?
Oh, I bet you.
All right, I'm going to find, we're going to look at it. Because we were going to do Toy Con last year. And then that kind of fell through in a minute. But I think doing these cons is going to add some, like, adds to the resume. To be like, hey, we know how to do a con. We did 5 panels across 2 of them, and we've got them fine-tuned. They're good. Let's come down and hang out. Yeah, the whys. Why not? Is basically what should be it. Like,
yeah, the why nots of Whimsy.
Yeah, do it because you like it and you're having fun. You're not hurting anybody.
Not hurting anybody, having fun.
We're not wildly political in any place. Like, we're not judgy in any place. We have some fun. I swear a little too much.
Yeah, and of course I never swear ever.
Oh, God, I was listening to those car recordings. I swear so much in front of that kid. I'm surprised Liam doesn't swear more, but...
Sophie's usually pretty good at picking out what not to say.
Oh, she dropped one last week.
But she was immediately redirected from it.
That is the why. So if you're new to listening, and you're hitting the road to 100, and you're trying to figure out what Whimsy is, here's the why. It's literally everything. It's having some fun, trying to figure out who you are. You get to do some self-reflection. You get to find some growth.
Leave something for your kids.
Oh, that's like my favorite part, man. Lynn can be like, whatever right now. But it's one of those things where I'm like, You never know, man.
Yeah, eventually you're gonna want it.
Like, I'm gonna get a box one day, and my dad's like, "Here you go. Here's a bunch of like weird stuff that I had when I was in college." And like, all right, and just like how amazing would that be? Like just some random shoebox of like concert tickets, pictures,
Like a snapshot of their life.
like a random diary, like because if I'm anything like him and of who I am today, he definitely had a diary.
Yeah, back then that was the podcast. Was your diary, throwing things in it.
Yeah, like just one day he's just gonna be like, "Here you go. Sorry for not being around. Here's a box," and you're like, "That's so cool."
Thanks for the box.
Hold nothing against the guy. It is what it is. But yeah, give me a box, dude.
give me a little bit of anything or a good story.
I am gonna try and track them down. Let's see. I'll archive most of those. But yeah, a lot of it's just like we're all gonna die at some point. But why not get 5, 6, 7 hours worth of recordings in which I don't know, they're just saved somewhere and nobody cares about them today or even like 10 years from now. But someone like Sophie's kids are like, what did great grandma look like? Boom.
Yeah, it could be right there.
Because I would like if like my grandma and grandpa had Philippine box, I'll take that box too. For whatever reason, we all are very interested in the past. If you sit down and think about it, and you're like, where did grandma and grandpa actually live and grow up? Like the idea that all the family lived in the Philippines. Like my dad lived in the Philippines. He's the last one. He lived in the Philippines for like 5 years, which means like my uncles were there for like 15 years. 18 years. And it's like, I did not know that. Like, there's an entire life in the Philippines. And I'm like, that would be amazing.
Well, yeah, there's always something that you're just not privy to.
Right. I got 6 or 7 hours with my grandma. And I'm like, that just scratched the surface of it. It's like, take any one of those hours and just I can probably get 3 more hours out of just one of those stories. But, yeah, it's interesting. It'll be fun. Yep. Kids get a bunch of sad dead episodes.
You have to preface the recording and be like, it's all fine now.
Oh, it's so funny. Liam was just like, you sound depressed. I'm like, calm down, dude. I'm like, I was asleep, so I was a lot tired. We are like an hour and a half. Sorry for the long one, but I'm not sorry for the long one. We had a good time.
I'll say sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. You guys have a great night. We'll see you for 99.
Whimsy.